Good evening. Welcome to Reflections on East Granby. My name is Mike Malloy and I'll be your host this evening. Today's date is October 3rd, 2009, and our guest tonight is Edward F. Phillips of 4 Cedar Ridge Road in East Granby. He's been a resident of East Granby since 1955 and is currently 86 years old. He was born in 1923 in Portland, Maine. And it's an honor to have you here tonight, Ed.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
And that was a very nice introduction.
Thank you. We're getting a little better with each.
Yeah, with practice, you do.
There you go. Okay, so you were born in 1923 in Portland, Maine.
Yes.
Why don't you just reflect a little bit on your childhood there? What was it like growing up, or your earliest memories?
Well, I lived in a suburban community. There was a woods nearby. And there was a high school athletic field nearby. It was a dead-end street off a major artery where the trolley cars went by, which made it very handy because people in those days used the trolley cars to run and go in town and back out. And then later, as we got in high school and shouldn't have, we used to ride the back of the trolley cars, which was sort of frowned on. But we did that. And we walked to school. Some of the schools were quite distant, but we walked to and from school. There were no school buses in the city. And I went from kindergarten all the way through when I was 11. For some reason, they sent me to college for a year, part-time. And that college was on the same street as the kindergarten, elementary schools, the junior high school, and the high school that I went to.
Wow.
Growing up, I was just a very little kid before the Depression, and things were pretty good.
Right.
Then the Depression came on, and things changed.
Okay.
Changed for everybody. Life changed. My father came home from work. He worked for a railroad. Ultimately did very well with the railroad. But he came home from work one day. He traveled a lot for the railroad, representative. And his salary had been cut exactly in half.
Wow.
With no change in his work status. And this was happening to our friends that were not losing their jobs. Their incomes were being decidedly reduced.
Dramatic change of lifestyle.
A dramatic change in every respect. And my father was a veteran of World War I Army, and he was very active in the American Legion then, as I am now. And every Wednesday, I think it was, when he wasn't out of town, my mother and my sister and I went to the Legion Hall, where we packed bags and baskets and boxes with food that my father and the other men and the wives went out and scrounged here and there, and clothing. And we distributed these to the families that were in need. And this went on for years.
Interesting.
Because of Depression, people now are not aware of it. But people in 1935 thought things were improving. And then zoom. Just like right now, the stock market's climbing a little bit.
Right.
Well, in 35 it was climbing a little bit. Then it dropped out.
Double dip.
Yeah, and then in 1937 it started up again. Everybody said, the prices are whammo, it headed for the bottom.
Wow.
And then at that time, Great Britain started buying war material from this country. And I'd just gotten out of high school in 1941, and Great Britain had contracted for, I think, 10 freighters from a shipyard there in South Portland, and I went to work in the shipyard. And at that time, this was 1941, early in 41, the United States was not officially, but was at war with Japan and with the Axis powers. And Portland happened to be a big Navy base and an Army town. Our ships were going out, and they were getting sunk right outside the harbor.
Really?
One destroyer that my sister was sort of dating one of the guys on.
So there's Navy U-boats that close, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize they had gotten that close to the east coast of the United States. Wow.
Oh, it was. There was a submarine, just a few years ago, a German submarine salvaged in Portland Harbor.
Wow.
And we launched a ship one afternoon, and it was on a ship It's launched, then it spent several weeks on what they call a fitting out pier, being ready to join a convoy.
Right.
Well, the ship, we launched one day. I remember watching, in fact, I played in a band at Shipyard.
Oh, really?
We had found a big band and we played for each launching, which was quite a thrill. But the ship was launched, then it went to the fitting out pier, and I was familiar with the ship from beginning to end. It left one afternoon. Next day I was back at work. The ship came back into the shipyard, listing at a great angle, full of holes. As it left the harbor, it was hit by German submarines.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And we weren't even in the war at that point.
Yeah.
But we were soon after that, and then shortly after that I enlisted in the Army, and away we go.
Yeah, the guys on those ships felt we were at a war, didn't they?
Oh, they knew it. They knew it.
Wow. So that was...
My cousin was at Pearl Harbor on a ship when that got hit.
No kidding.
So that war hit home.
Right.
Very much so for everybody.
So you were, let's see, 23. You were 19, 20 years old. Well, 18 years old.
I was 19. I turned 19 and joined the Army.
Okay, and that was what, 1942?
No, 1942.
So for 1942, you're 19 years old. It's pretty different world from when you went through quite a roller coaster ride those first 19 years.
Yeah, I did. It was.
From the Roaring 20s to the Depression.
Yeah, it was an interesting period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
So Portland was a big seaport, a ship-making community. Was that there before the war, or did that just really... I know there was something there. But
it was always a seaport.
Okay.
It was a seaport and a railhead.
Right.
The ships would come in from foreign shores.
Right.
They would come into Portland and they'd unload, and the railroads would take the cargo and transport it to Midwestern towns or cities, ports, Chicago, places like that.
Right.
And reverse, the railroad would bring in cargoes for Europe and other places in the world and transfer the cargo to the ships, and that would take off. But one of the interesting things when I was young was that there were always foreign sailors in town.
Okay.
From the foreign ships. And you'd go into someplace, and here you hear other languages, but they're residents.
Right.
There we would hear languages from all over the world.
I can imagine.
Seamen.
Yeah.
And you could always spot them. Their shoes were a little different. The haircuts would be different.
Yeah. Right.
They wouldn't look any different.
Right.
But you'd spot them right off the bat that they were from other countries.
Quite a eclectic experience for a young guy to be exposed to all that.
It was, and I liked it. And in those days, and what they let us do very often, we'd go down. I lived on the other side of town from the seaport side.
Right.
I lived maybe 4 or 5 miles on the other side of Portland.
Right.
But when we were young high school kids, we'd go in town and we'd go down to the wharfs, and they'd let us go on these freighters.
Okay.
Nobody would say a word. We'd go on and wander around.
Just go walking on.
Yeah. And I liked that.
Yeah. So you're growing up in Portland. You're exposed to all this stuff. The war hits, and did you study? I guess you hadn't had a chance to go to college yet. You went right into the military.
No, I went into the military. I didn't go to college till. Well, I did get into college while I was in the military. I'd finished basic training, and then I got sent up to University of Massachusetts by the Army, where I studied science for a semester.
Okay.
And then I went down to Tennessee and went through several weeks of testing, and went in, became an aviation cadet.
Okay.
And went through, I had about a year of very intensive training there.
In the Army?
In the Army.
Okay.
And I was commissioned and got my wings as a pilot.
Oh.
And then some years later, I went to the University of Maine and got a bachelor's degree in economics. And followed that, University of Hartford, and got a master's in sociology.
Oh, no kidding.
Then I went down to Central and did some further graduate work in anthropology.
Wow, quite a diverse education.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
So you're just to back up for one second. You're 19 years old. You go off to big war going on.
Yeah.
You get drafted, or did you sign up?
No, I signed up.
Yeah, a lot of people signed up.
Most of my friends were lining up, standing in line to get in at that point.
It was a better option for most people.
Well,
too, right? You had some choice.
The treatment was no different.
Okay.
But the attitude, the spirit in the country then was quite different.
Right.
We were angry. We were concerned. At that period of time, the war was very iffy. We were not winning.
Right.
And we were definitely losing at that point in the Pacific. We were nowhere in Europe,
right,
just hanging on. We had people fighting with other. When the war started, we had Americans. I had a roommate in college who was a gunner in the American Eagle Volunteer Squadron in England.
Okay.
And
yeah, those were the guys that went over prior to the war and signed up as mercenaries in a way, or just volunteers in the other.
Volunteers in the other forces.
Yeah. So so you go off. You're signed up. You get trained as an aviator. Where do you go from there? What was your experience in the war?
I went to different bases. I ultimately wound up an invasion glider pilot, experimental pilot in invasion gliders, and a transport pilot in Europe working with ground forces.
Okay.
And that's where I was in Europe. And I ended the war. I was kind of proud of it. I think at the furthest advance of the American forces in Czechoslovakia.
Oh, wow.
Had a battle there.
It's quite far east.
Yeah. And then, but that war, and it's not generally known, but the war officially ended in May over there, but the fighting went on for months and months and months. Right. I had friends came back to my fraternity, which I was in college. Months later, and they'd just out of combat.
No kidding.
Down in the Balkans.
Wow.
There were pockets where there was fighting going on. Then we got involved with the communists in Greece, and there was a lot of conflict there. And I got pulled out almost immediately after the war ended in Europe, and went to South America, primarily the Amazon region, to prepare for the invasion of Japan, which didn't come off.
Oh, that's where they staged it, or they started to get set up for it?
Well, it was set up all over the world, I think. And I happened to be in South America.
Wow.
And I loved it there.
Sounds like we have some artillery going on.
Well, that's what's happening out there. The war is over.
Good backdrop for the story here.
Yep. Yep, I arranged it.
Okay, good job.
If you've got friends, you can do those.
You can. You're impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, we've heard that. Basically, you have the experience in Europe. Quite an experience for a young guy at that age. I guess if you're exposed to it, it's all.
Well, everybody else is getting the same thing, so you don't think about it.
Yeah, right. So when you said just. One interesting point: you were a glider pilot. Now, what is that? How did a glider pilot interact with ground forces?
The glider pilot flew ground forces.
Oh, you brought them in.
Brought them in. I primarily flew, like I flew once with a Cannon, and I flew once with a Jeep in a thing. My big worry with the Jeep, and it was that. I'd get run over by a vehicle in my own aircraft.
Your own plane. You don't want to stop too quick,
and,
do you?
I know it. And I didn't know if my insurance would cover that.
So
that kind of thing.
Let me just see if you can paint a picture for me real quick here. You're being pulled by another plane.
Yeah. And I both pulled them. And
you both did both ends.
Yeah.
But you're being pulled. The glider's being pulled by a larger plane, which is pulling it along.
Which was a transport.
A transport. They cut you loose. You've got a full load of troops or whatever you've got in it, and your job is just to glide it in and put it down somewhere safe or wherever you're heading for.
You come in at 400 feet.
Okay.
Or did. I think the helicopters mostly took the place of those things.
Yeah. Right.
We'd come in over a patch of ground, and. Often with a lot of gliders to go into a very small space, like putting 12 of them in my front lawn.
Right, oh yeah.
And they had 84-foot wingspread, so they weren't little things.
No, I can imagine.
And we'd come in formation, and over a small patch of ground, and at 400 feet, because we weren't a big target, we had.
Right.
So it was interesting. You couldn't come in and land like a respectable airplane.
No, you had to.
They had a thing. It looked like a broom handle.
Okay.
Beside the pilot. So it was come up about here. A broom handle. It could have been broom on the other end, but there wasn't.
Yes.
It was hitched to spoilers, they were called. They're like little fences out along the wings, tops of the wings.
Yeah.
And of course, when the air stops flowing over the top of a wing, the wing loses lift,
right,
and it becomes sort of aerodynamically like a brick.
Okay.
So what we do, we get over the edge of the field, pull the nose sort of up like that, pull the spoiler, drop one wing, and come down. Just sort of come down like this.
Okay.
Then, using a little bit of judgment,
yes,
release the spoilers, push the nose down, hope that the air would start flowing over the wing again, and come in. And we used to joke that each landing was a controlled crash.
That's what I was going to say. There must have been some rough ones in there.
But it was.
Get a bad
I was
breeze.
21 by then, and it was exciting.
I can imagine, yeah.
And the most exciting part of it was being picked up from the air.
Yeah.
We did quite a bit of experimental work with that.
Okay.
And I hated picking the glider up because you're flying along. Same thing is happening in the glider and the airplane. The airplane comes over at 120 miles an hour.
Right.
There's a 400-foot nylon rope out in front of the glider hitched to it with a loop on the end. It sounded almost like it reminded me of a football goal, and I got to kick the point after.
Right.
So you would sit there, and pretty soon you hear instantly this huge noise as the airplane goes right over your head. The propeller's almost taken off the wings.
Yeah.
He's going 120 and you're not going anywhere.
Quite a
then
jolt.
all of a sudden, it's not really a jolt, it's a rapid acceleration. You're going 90 miles an hour and he's going 90 miles an hour, which is scary because if you're flying the transport plane, all of a sudden you're sitting there hoping you're not going to go in.
Yeah.
But flying a glider, it's exciting. And we played a game. We'd play a game and we always lose. One of us would bet the other that we could climb in back of the seat and hang on in the cargo crew compartment and see if we could hang on.
Overcome the G-force?
Yeah,
hold on there,
but never could we hang on. Our arms would straighten out and we'd slide back to the back end of the thing.
No matter how strong you were, that wasn't going to...
It was kind of fun to do.
I can imagine. So it's been like, it sounds like you're being shot out of a cannon there.
Well, sort of, yeah. I never got offered a job by Ringling Brothers.
No.
But... You know, it was available.
Sounds like it was pretty close to the job experience. Okay, so it was a pretty thrilling experience for a young guy. Great.
Yeah.
So you fulfill your duties and to Uncle Sam, and where do you go from there?
Well, I came back to Maine.
Okay.
And I didn't even want to leave South America. I liked it sitting almost on the edge of the Amazon River, boiling hot, sitting in my airplane and thinking this is the last time. And I wasn't happy. I liked what I was doing, and I wasn't.
You weren't happy to leave the.
I didn't want to leave
the Army. What was that?
Well, I didn't want to leave South America. I didn't want to leave the Amazon.
You enjoyed it that much?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what was that? What was that like back then? What part of the Amazon were you in?
The Atlantic Ocean end.
So in Brazil?
Yeah.
Okay. So they had training bases there for the Allied.
Mostly what I was doing was flying, mostly over the jungle, picking up people and relaying them off to various places over the jungle. And you can hear the thunder out there.
Yeah.
I'm still wet.
Yeah.
The weather was like that
quite
much
often.
of the time.
Yeah.
The flying was wild.
Now, I just have no conception of what's going on in the Amazon jungle in the lead up to the building up for the Pacific War. Is that what?
Well, I had no idea either.
What were they? What was the
my
purpose?
little area where I was? Well, it wasn't little. It was 1,000 miles long.
Yeah.
But I would take up troops from one place and take them to another place, and
were they training?
Mostly gathering.
Gathering.
They were what the whole objective was to assemble the troops for the invasion. Just as they assembled the troops in England for that invasion, this was assembling to get them. I think the invasion was scheduled for November or something like that.
Right.
To assemble all these millions of people.
Wow. Quite a, so it's one of those little vignettes of World War II that I just have
Yeah.
No conception. It's going to be
coming
interesting what
closer.
this sounds like on the table.
That's what it sounded like there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we got our.
Yeah.
Maybe if we start talking about something less war.
Let's talk about nice beach somewhere.
Let's talk about
yeah, with the palm trees. And,
yeah.
that'd be nice.
Okay, so we're moving on. So you got yanked out to your chagrin. You get pulled back to Portland, was it? Was that where they?
Yeah, and then I flew out of Dow Field up in Bangor for
Okay.
quite a few years. I flew trainers mostly up there.
Okay.
Trainers and some utility transports, that kind of stuff.
Teaching people how
and
to
I
fly,
like that. No, just training, basically.
Training, okay.
And mostly buzzing the lakes and the woods and the things like that. And we had this tendency to fly low.
Okay.
Like just over the treetops.
A little more
It's
exciting now. Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
And every Monday, we'd have a group would come in. I flew about 3 days a week. And
Right.
then every weekend, we'd have a bunch of guys come in and fly. And from all over. And every Monday, the phone would start ringing. It would be the mink farmers.
Oh, you're scaring the mink.
Yeah, and when minks are scared, they eat their young.
Oh,
And these guys would call up and complain about our guys flying over the mink farms, and the minks come. But how do you tell the difference between a mink farm and a garage? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Probably not much from the roof,
No.
not from the air anyway.
Yeah.
So you spent some time serving in Maine. Where'd you go from there? You went back to Portland after you got out of the Army?
I went to University of Maine.
And while you were still in the Army? Or
Yeah.
Okay, so you
And
went.
then got my degree there, went back to Portland, and then just a very short time I got a summer job at the Portland airport, and I went to Boston.
Right.
Moved there because half my family comes from Boston.
Okay.
And so I moved back. It's sort of a second home to me. So I moved to Boston.
Yep.
Went to work for railroad.
Sure.
And like my father,
Yep.
had to work for the railroad. And I was totally bored with my job. So I got into advertising and writing for advertising because I've liked writing, and I did very well at it when I was all my life.
Right.
In fact, that's how I made my living for the last more than a half a century.
So you're pursuing your skills, and you were good at it.
And
so you just...
I had the aviation background and the writing background, so I came down here and went to work for Hamilton Standard.
Okay, but somewhere in there you met Carolyn, who's been on our show before. And
we met at a wedding.
Okay.
And we didn't know each other. She was a nurse in Boston at the time, and I was living in Portland. And I was an usher, and she was a bridesmaid. And they were fixing me up with another bridesmaid.
Okay.
I don't know who they were fixing her up with. But we got goofed up, and we marched down the aisle. We came back together.
Okay.
And that worked out pretty well.
Started talking.
Yeah, so we went to they had the wedding party's dinner and
reception
afterwards.
Yep.
This was after the rehearsal dinner. So we went to that, and it was like all rehearsals, and sitting around, and I didn't know many people there at all. I don't think she did. So I said to her, because we had done pretty well walking up and down the aisle.
Right.
It takes a little skill.
It's like dancing.
Yeah.
Kind of.
You can learn it. And so I said, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Remember, we were quite young then.
Yeah.
So we went down to a favorite place and had a hamburger and a cup of coffee. And we were talking, acquainting each other with ourselves. And she said, did you know Joe Cobb? And I said, yeah, we're one of my best friends. I know him from kindergarten. We graduated from high school together and played in a band together. And she said, well, he's my brother.
Oh, wow.
And I said, oh. Then I told her how in World War II I was on a troop ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, standing in line, and the guy in front of me turned around, and it was Joe, her brother, out there in the middle of the ocean.
Unbelievable, yeah.
I know it. So
small world.
I mean, what could I do? I came home and married her.
Makes sense.
I know it, but it was a shock to me. And then I was worried about him. I didn't know where he was on the ship, and we came under a really heavy attack.
Right.
And it was an extension of an attack on a convoy that we were following, and I knew some guys in the convoy, and they got really beat up.
Right.
We were all right, but I lost my hearing from cannons. I was damaged. But I was worried about two things. I was worried about where was Joe, and I was worried about my camera, which was somewhere in the bowels of the ship.
Okay.
And I said, if we get sunk, I'm going to lose my camera.
That's funny when you think of
that. Yeah. So I saw him in England sometime later. I visited with him a little bit.
Your camera made it, and so did Joe?
My camera made it through.
Good.
Fine.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So you make so now you've met Carolyn and you're both up there in Portland. What, you live together?
No, she was in Boston.
Oh, she was still in Boston.
I was commuting back and forth.
Yep.
And I said, well, this, I can't keep this up forever.
No, that's a long commute.
Yeah. So she got a job in a hospital in Portland.
Right.
And we got married. And we were there for a little while. And we came to Connecticut.
And Carolyn was a nurse, right?
She was a nurse.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Yep.
So and where are you working at the time?
I was working at Hamilton Standard.
Okay, so you would come down?
I came down.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah,
yep.
And then she came down.
So now you said you worked as a writer.
Yeah.
You came down to work at Hamilton Standard as a writer?
I wrote books.
For Hamilton?
Technical books for Hamilton.
Okay.
Then I wound up editing and producing books.
Okay.
Then I started, finished up with that, and went to work. I had become involved with the Connecticut Natural History Museum.
Okay.
So I was the the development officer. That means I went out and asked for money.
Okay.
Just a fancy title for that, and I was
fundraiser, you call it today.
Yeah, and I was president. So I did that.
You can't develop without money, so it makes sense. Yeah.
And so I'm not changing. I'm not developing. So I did that for a while, and then I got cancer.
Okay.
And it was too much of a commute from East Granby to Stores.
What year or time frame was this?
Back in the 80s, I think.
Okay.
Late 80s.
All right.
And so I started writing for the Founding Valley Herald did a story about me.
Okay.
And then they asked me if I'd like to write for them. So I said, sure, why not? It was all done writing at Hamilton. I was just full-time sort of at the museum.
Right.
So I started writing for newspapers.
So your writing career kind of segued off of various...
different directions. Yeah, now I'm concentrating. I've got 3 novels going.
Okay.
And I'm collecting rejection slips. If I get enough, I'm going to be able to paper the living room.
That's recycling.
Well, you got to think of those things.
You got to save money any way you can.
Yeah.
So you got so let's jump back a few years. You come to Connecticut. You're working at Hamilton Standard. Carolyn's going to come down, and you guys decide where you're going to live. Where do you go?
We went to Copper Hill. Okay. In 1955, and that was just a tiny farming community then.
Okay.
And we lived in a converted, it's still there, it looks quite nice now, converted tobacco shed, which was across the street on a knoll, across the street from where Copper Hill Country Club is now.
Okay.
There's
a church there.
There's a little church down.
Yep. And if you're looking at the church to the left or right? To the left.
The church, as you look at the street, was to the left.
Okay.
And there was one house in between.
Okay.
There's a guy lived downstairs, and he had a bulldozer, and he was kind of bulldozing the pastures where the country club was going to go. He spent most of his time welding the treads back onto the bulldozer, which had seen better days.
Yeah.
And I came home from work one day, and there in the living room were 2 truck doors.
2 truck doors?
2 truck doors.
Okay.
Leaning against the wall.
Yeah.
They looked nice there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said to Carolyn, what's going on? And she was not an artist, but she's in there. She's painting Copper Hill Country Club signs on the doors of the...
Oh, okay. So she'd been recruited.
Next thing you know, she's painting men's room and ladies' room and all this stuff.
Right.
And she's becoming the community nurse in that little cluster, a little hamlet.
Okay.
I didn't know anybody there, but she had immediately got to know everybody, being a nurse. She was immediately the...
Was she working as a nurse at the time? Or was
No.
She, no. Okay, so she was home with...
But she was...
locally.
Yeah, but not professionally, just because people would come to her.
Right.
We got a phone call one morning. People across the street had a dairy farm.
Right.
And we got a phone call one morning. can Carolyn come over right away? So she got up, she got dressed, went over, and I went to work. I come home that night and I said, what happened? She says, I delivered a breech birth calf this morning.
They don't teach you that in nursing
They don't.
school.
No, she went to school in Boston.
Yeah, right.
And she went to Deaconess and she went to Simmons. And
Right.
she says at Simmons there was never a mention of delivering
I
a
bet.
calf.
Yeah, I know.
So that really established her in the community.
I bet, yeah.
After that, for the next several years, we had a succession of kids with burned fingers and feet and
Right.
cuts in our kitchen.
No more breech birth calves.
But not another calf.
We'll only do that once.
I know it. I know it.
So do you have any children at this point?
No.
Okay, so take us through the next couple years.
So then we bought a house at really a small house at Congamon Lake.
Oh, really? So you moved to Suffield?
So we went up to Congamon and stayed there for a while.
Suffield, Southwick, you were in Suffield?
No, we were in Suffield.
Okay, all right.
Just over the line.
Yeah,
really.
right.
And really loved it there.
That's nice.
They had a little beach and it was just great. And by then we had two very little kids.
Right.
So we built a house in East Granby, and we had some friends that owned a farmhouse in West Suffield, right almost on the East Granby line on
Sure.
Phillips Road. And Carolyn had helped them a lot. So the parents died that owned the farmhouse. It was the oldest house west of the mountain. We moved in there while they were building our house.
Okay.
We stayed in there nearly a year.
So where are you building the house?
And on Cedar Ridge
On
Road.
Cedar Ridge. So yeah. Okay, so you're building your new house on Cedar Ridge. It seems like that whole development's newer than that. What year was that?
That was we started in 61.
Okay, so I guess that makes sense.
And then moved in 62.
And that was all farm there at one point, right?
At one time it was farm.
You wouldn't know it today, would you?
No, you wouldn't. And my concern then was it was so barren. I said,
Really?
we've got to grow trees in here. Now look at it,
I know.
like a forest primeval.
It is. Well, you've got all that protected land up there now too,
Yeah.
so that's great. So okay, so you have a couple. You have two young children. Which you have three children. Why don't
I
you
had
just
two at that
start
point.
by listing.
I had a boy 4.
And his name?
One 2.
Okay, their names.
And Jeff
was 4.
He's the one that's in the Army.
Okay.
And Matt's the one he's in Colorado.
Okay.
Buying up old houses and cottages, cabins, refurbishing them and renting them or selling them, and
Good for you.
living in the mountains and skiing in the winter.
And your other son is a brigadier general. You
Brigadier
said?
General.
And he's stationed in.
He's in Georgia.
in the Army.
Yeah.
Followed his dad. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have a daughter.
I have a daughter.
Yep.
She's up north of Boston. All my kids went through all the schools in East Granby. My daughter is a widow with 2 kids.
Okay.
And she's working part-time in a boutique. She's going to Harvard part-time studying pre-law.
Good for
Got
her.
a degree. She's having a kind of a tough, hard life.
That's
Working
pretty. Yeah,
and
but it
taking
sounds
care
like
of
you
the
got
kids.
some real pretty successful group of folks there. They keep
They're
improving.
They all grew up hardworking.
Yeah, just like
And
their
they
parents.
went through the schools in East Granby. We taught a lot of the schools in East Granby.
Now, what are your memories of that era? I mean, it was a
Well-
smaller town.
Okay, we
some
came
ways.
to, we came from cities. We were
Yeah.
city born and bred. But when
Portland.
we went to Copper Hill. My father was appalled when he came down the first
Oh, really?
Christmas. This place wasn't too warm, and he sat there for several days with his overcoat on. And finally he said to my mother, "Mary, we're going home." And they got in the car and they drove home. But then we wound up in East Granby, and our first activity, we had one kid ready for kindergarten, and there was no kindergarten.
That's right.
So a group of us got together and we formed a kindergarten,
A cooperative.
and it was very successful. We were very proud of that. And that ran for a while, and then we turned it over to the town. They voted to have a town kindergarten, which was a good move.
Yeah, I think we've heard about that from several residents. I guess
Yeah.
there was a transition where the state actually, at one point, actually required it.
Yeah,
So they
and
said,
we were
okay.
glad of that. We turned
Yeah.
equipment and everything over to them.
Took a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah, it did, but it was fun. I enjoyed it.
People speak very highly of that cooperative kindergarten. It was a good quality education.
Quality
Yeah.
teachers.
Yeah.
And we built our own equipment. We refurbished the building ourselves, and it was kind of fun.
So that was just the kindergarten, though. From there, they'd go to the elementary school?
We had 80 pupils in there.
Wow.
We had morning and afternoon classes. We had 3 teachers. One was the head teacher.
Interesting.
And
was that common in that day?
Huh?
In smaller towns, was that common in that day? I mean,
I don't know anything about other small towns.
Interesting.
I just knew about this town.
The first one, I only interview in one town, so I guess I wouldn't have heard about it.
Yeah.
But you've got your kids in school, and you're still working at Hamilton.
Yeah.
Did you your wife, did she ever go back to nursing? I forgot.
Yes, she did. Yeah. After a while, she did some private duty nursing. Then she went into geriatrics, and she worked down in Bloomfield for a few years. And then she worked at Kimberly Hall over in Windsor for 20 years.
Yeah, you're filling in some of the gaps of questions I forgot to ask her.
Yeah, and at the same time, for 20 years, she took the courses, and she was a ski patrol for 20 years.
Right.
And that was her real love.
Wow.
She'd even done some racing when she was young.
Yeah.
And
once you get that bug, it doesn't leave you.
I know it. And we both got involved in the skiing, and we got involved in canoeing.
So your wife was running for selectman at the time? I know.
Yes, she was, and she was having all kinds of experiences.
Yep.
One of her most exciting experiences was on North Road in East Granby.
Okay.
Going house to house, and she walked up this sidewalk, and she got attacked by a chicken.
Oh no!
A chicken, yeah. It was with
her cast.
I think this was another time.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was probably a guard chicken, you know.
Yeah. You got to watch them. Yeah.
Dangerous.
They're
you
the
got to
worst.
watch them. I don't know how you train a guard.
You don't
chicken,
want to turn your back on one of them.
Oh no, they go right for the throat.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you've had, I've done a little bit of walking door to door. You always get nervous a dog's going to come out of the backyard. I've never seen a chicken come out. Though. That's an interesting one. So anyway, so you've had some experiences locally involved with different community groups and stuff. Can you run us through those?
Well, I was on the Board of Tax Review, which is normally pretty quiet.
Pretty placid.
Yeah. And then I got elected or appointed or somehow got to be chairman of it.
Okay.
So at that point, the landfill then, the dump, was leaching over where your place is.
Yeah, right, over into the brook,
area. Yeah. So everybody in town showed up. They wanted to have their taxes totally discontinued because of leaching on that side of town. We had people from all over the place.
Claiming their property was worthless at that point?
My water's polluted.
Yeah.
Well, where do you live? Oh, I live on East Street.
It was a coordinated effort to get there.
So we had a hearing.
Got to give them credit.
And I walked in from the assessor's office into the hearing room.
Yeah.
And I looked. My first hearing.
Really?
Yeah. And the place is packed.
Right.
Yeah, and there's court stenographers there, assessors, appraisers there, lawyers, and a sea of faces all mad at me.
Yeah,
I didn't have a thing to do with the leaching, but they were mad at me.
That's the danger of being in office.
I know. And I'm sitting there, what am I going to do? I look out, one of the guys on the board is out there. One of the guys on my board is in the crowd.
Right.
Ready to sue the town.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Where's my support? Who's watching my back?
Did you have your Army helmet on at this point?
I should have.
Yeah, okay. Right.
But we got through this meeting, and it was a dandy.
Yeah.
People asking questions I couldn't answer.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And obviously, it was the town's responsibility.
Right.
And we didn't deny that. There was no denying
that. Was a big issue. Yeah.
It was a very big issue.
Yeah.
I forgot how many millions of dollars it cost us.
The town?
Yep.
So the town had to pay to clean that up?
Oh, we paid through the nose.
Really?
We paid to clean it up. We paid to provide bottled water to, I think, 11 families turned out.
Yeah.
Had legitimate
What year
claims.
was this? Just a rough...
I don't remember.
It
was probably
in the 80s?
30 years ago,
It had to be
20 years ago.
It had to be in
Some
the 80s,
in that period.
Because I remember seeing the history of the testing of the area. Because the EPA got involved. The federal EPA got in and came in and tested all the wells.
Yeah,
they're the ones.
Then we had to pipe water from Simsbury.
Yep.
So we had to pay to put in the pipes and get the water over and pay for it.
So there was no Superfund money then? There
was no Superfund money, no nothing. We could have had a bake sale, I suppose, to pay for it, but we didn't.
Cupcakes later.
Yeah.
All right.
But that was pretty exciting.
That had to have been quite an experience. Yeah.
It was.
So it
was an eye opener.
Was there any relief for the people from the Board of Assessment Appeals on their? You couldn't really cut taxes if you had to pay millions of dollars.
No, but I don't remember what the relief was.
The workout,
but in the long run, we managed to satisfy people.
Yeah.
We did what we had to do.
Yeah, you fixed it. Yeah.
And you can't leave somebody sitting out there in trouble.
No.
You've got to. There are moral obligations.
Absolutely.
In government as well as fiscal responsibility.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an interesting balance.
Yeah.
So you have. So what? Any other boards, commissions, or anything else?
I was when we were starting the development on the east side of town over towards Bradley Field. Industrial areas over there. I was vice chairman of the Industrial Development Commission.
Okay.
And I've had mixed feelings ever since.
Okay.
I feel that our town, like small towns across the country, has become compartmentalized.
Okay.
We're a bunch of cocoons separated.
All right.
First place, the town is divided by major roads. Mm-hmm. And is divided by areas. We moved here. Our kids lived in Winding Hills. Some of their friends they went to school with lived in other residential areas. The industry was in another area. Schools were separated.
Right.
There was no kids walking from one area to another.
Right.
There was no public transit.
Right.
Your kid couldn't jump on a bus and go over and see his buddy up off of Route 20.
Right.
That sort of thing, which has happened all over, I sort of fault the zoning philosophy in the country for that.
Yep.
And
Suburbia.
Right. Yeah. And it's extension of the culture by strips of cement.
Right.
Moving out. Ever bigger lots, ever bigger houses.
Right.
And I think it's done a lot of harm. And I think there will be a future, some distant time in the future, where there's going to be, the expansion is going to be a compression.
Right.
And we're going to have more.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I was on planning and zoning for a few years, and I can tell you the big focus in not only East Granby, but the movement throughout the country is towards village centers, towards recreating a lot of what you're describing suburbia kind of obliterated, where they actually, towns like Suffield and Windsor Locks and to a lesser extent East Granby, they basically took out that center and they moved things into like, you know, it probably looks good to an architect or a landscape engineer on paper where they can draw their nice neat lines, but it kind of it dissolves community. Yeah,
it does. That's just what happens, and I'm very much in favor of things like that Blueback Square and West Hartford. I think those things are great.
Well, they're working on it in East Granby. I mean, we passed the village center zone and moving in that direction. So it's interesting that you'd observe that. Now, there was a little bit denser development in the town center when you first lived here. Was it more of a, or less?
Well,
were there shops and stores down there?
Not much. We had a little grocery store.
Okay, and that was...
And a gas station.
Right in the center on 187, or was that off to the...
That was on Main Street.
Oh, really?
There was a little grocery store.
Yeah.
There was the church. Okay. And in the first place, Route 20 didn't come the way it comes now.
A different jog.
It came down School Street.
Okay.
Jogged around where the auto place is there.
Okay.
Jogged around. Past what was the bank. Then it was the fire station and town hall.
Okay, where the plaza?
Where the bank is now.
Okay, oh, got it, all right.
Yeah, and in fact, the vault in the bank now was the vault in the town hall.
They didn't move it?
No, they just kept it and incorporated it.
That's interesting.
Well, that street, which is Route 20, came down School Street, over North Main Street, that one block, really, and turned left and went on to Granby.
Okay.
In that one block, there was a grocery store.
Right.
and I forgot what else, not much else, some houses, and then up and back was the big church,
Right.
which you had to enter from where Route 20 turned and went off to.
So it was like at an angle you went into the.
Went up straight up the.
So South North Main Street was still
Yeah.
would shoot off from that direction.
Up to the church.
Okay.
And just across the street where Cain's is,
Right.
there was a store there. I don't know what else it had been, but that's where the post office was.
In the same building.
In the same building, yeah.
So there was kind of a little center.
It was.
I mean,
It was a little center.
Yeah, yeah.
We had to
town hall
shop.
and-
The real shopping was in Granby or Southwick or Windsor Locks or simply Bloomfield, the towns around.
Right.
But that was the center of town.
Right.
It was kind of nice.
Okay. Yeah.
I still like it. I have no,
Yeah, it's a little different now, but I think the idea is to recreate some of that storefront.
I think so.
You know,
yeah. I'm concerned that intersection, difficult. People that are in the center shops, it's not easy to run across in the center shop, across North Main Street,
South Main.
to South Main, to any of the store, like good if you want to walk over to the Dunkin' Donuts. Right
Well, that's the
there.
idea that we looked at when we
Yeah.
were looking at this center, was the idea that you want to have the densest development to the east of 187 in that
Yeah.
whole strip there. And I think
Yeah.
that one of the things that keeps coming up over and over is sidewalks down into
Yeah.
there so you can actually walk.
Yeah,
And
I think it would be great.
You'll have more storefront
Yeah.
buildings. So
And
in that era, you wanted to share something with us?
Yeah, you asked Carolyn when you
Yes.
were talking to her
Yeah.
what the budget was back then.
Okay.
So
Oh, because she was a selectman.
I found some interesting figures.
Okay.
Paying attention?
I got my glasses on.
It's going to be on the test.
I'm preparing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen. This is 1976.
33 years ago.
Yep. It was pretty quick.
Sometimes.
The Board of Selectmen budget.
Yep.
$1,474,778. Board of Education budget. $1,498,000. Very, very close.
Yeah, not
Total
much being
budget.
spent on anything else.
Total budget of $2,972,778.
Right.
Then I looked at our last one here, if I can find it, and I think I can. Total town budget, $3,950,000. Total Board of Education budget, this is this last meeting.
Yeah, yep.
$13 million.
Yeah.
So it shows how we have changed. I'm not making a value judgment whatsoever.
No.
Demographically, we've changed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And needs have changed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Things have changed.
Yeah.
But I was actually amazed when I looked at that and looked at the differences.
Absolutely. Yeah. Things have gotten a lot more expensive. I
Yeah.
think you'll find that especially in the field of education, the requirements and just the technology alone, and there's been quite a transition in where we put our priorities.
Yeah.
I think education.
That's a very important point.
Yeah, as we compete with the rest of the world and as we develop our own technology and needs for education, there's a real understanding that you have to prepare the kids, or we can't.
You do, and
there'll be no tax.
Sadly, our country isn't measuring up to a lot of other countries.
Yeah, no,
that's kind of scary to me.
I think we go through cycles. So don't you?
Yeah,
I think there's
don't
always
know.
a chicken and a. It's always. There's always a sense that the sky's falling somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think and we always rise to the occasion. It's a great country.
I hope you're right.
We buck up and we take on the threat, and we tend to do very well.
Yeah, I know.
Got quite a history. So, those years in East Granby, your memories of them. What were let me just jump way back real quick because I kind of bounced over this. You first driving to East Granby. What was your first impression?
That
you remember?
I had to look real quick, or I'd miss it.
I moved into East Granby 10 years ago, and I didn't have much different of an impression. So,
yeah.
It's like coming down North Main into South Main. If you blink, you miss the town, the town center. But.
Well, I'd never heard of East Granby.
Okay.
Even when I was living in Windsor Locks, and she was up in Maine, I didn't know where East Granby was.
So you worked at Hamilton over by the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your commute, is that what drove you to proximity to work, and you looked around the area?
Yeah, and then Carolyn had to get down here, and
to approve.
So I asked, so I had developed a real close friendship.
Yeah.
We so close they became godparents of one of our children.
Right.
He told me about this place in East Granby. I said, "Where's that?" And he says, "I'll show you." He took me over. Wasn't very far from Hamlin.
And that was the barn.
And it looked great.
Yeah.
It just built, and it looked beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was. And we moved in there, and we loved it until spring came. And when they restored it, as they just had, tobacco sheds to go back have to be ventilated.
Right.
Well, we had a lot of snow that year.
Right.
And the attic, unbeknownst to us, was full of snow. And
it had filled up?
It filled up with snow. And then we woke up one very warm spring morning. Water's pouring down on us. We're just married, and our furniture's all new.
Right.
A new mattress we were concerned about. All this water's coming down. Then we hear a crash in a bathroom. A wall caves in.
Are you serious?
Oh, it was incredible. And Carol was real mad.
Yeah, most women would, or most men would.
But, we survived it.
Yeah.
Afterwards, it was funny, but it wasn't.
So you never had a problem with building codes the rest of your life, did you?
No. Never.
There wasn't a building inspector back then, I don't think.
I know it.
So anyway, so you move, okay, so let's jump forward. Your kids go to school in East Granby. They had a good experience there. And you've spent the majority of the rest of your adult life here. All
that's
of it,
right.
You've stayed here.
Yeah.
If I was to ask you one thing that's changed the most about East Granby, what would that be?
The perceived needs of people.
Okay, so
but that's not peculiar to East Granby, I think.
Right. Okay. So you think there's a higher expectation of residents as to what their basic needs are?
I think so. Yeah. I don't know how well that is, or whatever that's holding up in this current economic downturn, slump.
Yeah. It's got to be a little dose of reality when
people,
you
I think,
So you think, now thinking back, I always ask this question, if there was a character that you remember that stands out in your mind that you'd like to share with the audience, is there anybody that jumped from your time in East Granby that kind of left an impression that you...
Well, a lot of people, but primarily Frank Rothammer.
Okay.
He was the Rock of Gibraltar.
Okay.
And he'd had quite a background. He'd started out as in the police department in East Hartford. He became a first sergeant of infantry in World War II.
Right.
Then he ran a laundry. He wrote for newspapers and did photography, and ultimately became the first selectman for several years.
Yeah.
And he was a very conservative individual. And the town did well under him.
Okay.
And he was just a great person.
Many people speak highly of him.
He was an honorable person.
Okay.
A man of total honor.
I haven't had anybody say anything other than that about Frank Rothammer. So that's interesting. So if you were, I'm going to jump forward a little bit. So you've spent your retired years in East Granby, and if there was anything that you would think could have been done differently, and I always preface this by saying, hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any point at which? But the other side of that is you don't learn from, if you don't understand the past, you don't learn for the future.
That's true.
Okay. Is there anything looking back that could have been done differently? That
well, we made certain temporary mistakes, like
other than cleaning up the dump before.
That. And we did make some mistakes in the schools.
Okay.
Like the open classroom thing was a total mistake.
Okay.
We did that in the Seymour School.
Right.
And then recovering from that, my youngest boy, in whatever grade he was in, 4th grade or so, his class, believe it or not, for that whole year was on the stage in the gym at the Seymour School.
Wow. Yeah.
They didn't have space.
Yeah.
And they were reconstructing it,
Right.
and at that time turning it into a big open room.
Yeah. There's been that caused an echo down history. I think there always in every town is a resistance to really grappling with that kind of stuff.
I know it.
You know, just fix it and get it over
Yep.
with. You know, it's always like do it in pieces. Hey, one last question because we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
I want a piece of advice from Ed Phillips to kids today. What's your wisdom of 86 years?
Well, they can recite it. They do.
Right.
As an Army cadet, I learned and lived by, accepted the Army Cadet Code of Honor, which says we will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate anyone amongst us who does. I taught my kids that, and it seems to have stuck. I would advise any parent to try to, not the kids, because what the kids get, they get from their parents.
Right.
I would advise any parent to adopt any philosophy such as that and
So
try to
simple
instill that in their kids.
Okay, great. Works in the Army.
Yeah.
It's obviously worked for you, and I mean,
It worked for my father. That's why I first got this business from my father. Was an artillery officer in World War I.
Right.
He also came home without his hearing from cannons.
Yeah.
And although it took mine a while, but I did lose my hearing, quite a bit of it from cannon fire and from airplane engine noises.
Plus, you had 3 kids.
And 3 kids. That would do it. That and rock music. And playing the drums when I was
picked
young.
that up. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, Ed. Well, it was a pleasure, and I've been trying to get you in here since Carolyn's been here, and I'm glad you.
Well, it's my pleasure indeed.
All right, it's been a thrill.
Thank
you. Once again, you can view this on GCTV channel 16, ongoing series Reflections on East Granby, or you can pull it up on the web at gctv16.org and go to their View Online prompt and watch it at your pleasure. Thanks for joining us tonight, and have a good night.